Did you look any of them in the eye?
I looked every one of them in the eye.
Greetings and salutations, everyone. This is Thad Forrester with Patriot to the Core podcast. Thank you for joining me again. I'm glad to be back. It's been a little while since I've released an episode, and today I've got a Medal of Honor recipient, Mr. Sammy Davis from the Vietnam era. And before I go any further, I want to apologize to our friend Mike Dillman in Manteca, California. Mike, I called you Mike Davis in this interview, so just not enough sleep, I think, on my side here, and kind of lost it for a minute. But anyway, Mr. Davis was just a complete pleasure to talk with. He's also known as the real Forrest Gump, so I'll have some links in the show notes for what that's all about. And there was so much we could have covered. I mean, there's a lot of information out there. I want you to please read his Medal of Honor citation and check out some of the other links that I've got there in the show notes with some interviews and articles on him. So just a stand-up guy, and went through some ridiculous persecution when he came back to our country, as you can imagine, back in the 60s and 70s. So let's get in and enjoy our time with Mr. Davis. We also had a special guest on here, and that was his wife, Miss Dixie. So she joined us, and she has a little bit of laryngitis, but that was a good little surprise to hear from her as well. All right, Mr. Davis, you wrote a book, You Don't Lose Till You Quit Trying.
Yes, sir.
Why did you decide to do the book?
Well, I wanted something for my children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren to be able to know that Grandpa was more than just the guy that went and sat on the bucket on the creek bank and fished with them. So I thought, well, I'll write my book, and that way they'll know the other side of the story of Grandpa.
Yeah. And I'm trying to think now, when you were in Vietnam, you were not married yet.
Oh, no, sir.
Okay. And no kids.
I was just out of high school. I just discovered that girls smelled better than boys.
Oh, okay. Well, I like the book. I love the book. And one thing about it, too, is it's like a biography. So it's not all about your military career. I love hearing about your life growing up. And one thing about you is you moved a lot.
Yes, sir.
I mean, looking back on that, what do you think about that? Was that, I'm sure it was good for you, but did you want that for your children as well, or would you have wanted prefer stability?
Well, I preferred stability. I mean, I didn't mind it as a young man. I just thought that's the way it was. Well, it was the way it was. My sister still talked badly about it. We always moved. We never got to stay with our friends. But the unique side of it is that no matter where I go in America, I've got old schoolmates. I've got old friends, schoolmates.
That's true.
So I love it.
Well, and you and I have a mutual friend in Mike Dillman out in Manteca, California. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
In fact, I called Mike and said, "Hey, do you know Sammy Davis?" He lived in Manteca at one time. He said, "Of course I do. He comes to dinner when he's in town."
Yes, sir.
So what has been the reaction of the book, and how has that helped you as you go to speak at different events?
Well, it's definitely given people a lot more questions simply because they know more about me. So when we go talk at one of the events, they'll bring it up. Well, I read in the book that, and then will tell me about it. So give them more depth about what the subject they were talking about. Mm-hmm. And it's working very well. Yes, sir.
What about the background on the title? Will you explain where that came from?
You don't lose till you quit trying. That was from my mother. She was constantly reminding me as a very young child that, now, Sammy Lee, you don't lose till you quit trying. And the unique thing of the night in Vietnam that I earned my medal, swim across the river for my brothers, my mama was on my shoulder. And that's what she said. Sammy Lee, you don't lose till you quit trying. And another thing that her spirit told me that night was one of the reasons why I swam across the river, was because, Sammy Lee, now you don't leave your brother. So I went and got my brothers.
Yeah. Well, that's one thing I was wanting to ask you, is what was going through your head, at that moment, when all hell broke loose and you were getting your teammates out of there. And I'd forgotten that's what was that part. At least part of it was your mom.
Yes, sir.
Wow.
Yes, sir.
I
had been semi-unconscious because of the round that had hit 8 inches from my head, the RPG round that had hit 8 inches from my head. So I was still kind of in a dazed condition. And when I seen all these things happening, it was like it was unreal. And that was one of the things that helped make my mother being on my shoulder seem so real, was because I was kind of still foggy in my head.
Oh,
if that makes any sense at all.
Yeah, and you talk about in the book how close you were with your mother, and while you were in country in Vietnam, you would write home to her. It seemed like quite a bit. I mean, you were really close to her.
Yes, sir. Well, I tried to write home every day. I mean, there was a time period when I didn't get to because of what had been happening, but I tried to write home to her every day, write her something, you know.
I put myself in your shoes, and then also kind of in my mom's, because I'm really close with my mom. And how did your mom deal with you, first of all, just being in war, and then, of course, once you got injured? How did they deal with that? Because I don't think you talked about that much. It didn't seem like, at least when you got injured, you didn't.
Well, she never spoke much about it to me, and I learned more about how it affected Mom years after she passed, because my sisters and other family members would say, well, you know, your mama was just really torn up that you were in Vietnam, and she was just really, really torn up that you'd been injured, and, you know. And, I mean, I knew Mom was concerned, but I didn't know she was tore up. You understand?
Yeah, she was a strong woman, at least for you, sounds like.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So when you were in country, how many times did you just go to Vietnam once?
Yes, sir.
Okay. How long were you there?
From March of 67 to March of 68.
Oh, okay. So you got it a full year then.
Well, I had some hospital time, but yes, sir.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, you mentioned how you missed home so much, but then once you had the chance to go home, you were not happy about it.
Well, it seemed like I needed to be back in Vietnam helping my brothers, which I understand now is a normal feeling. But at the time, I didn't. What? Oh, yeah, I didn't. I guess I needed closure about Vietnam.
Uh-huh.
So that's what I kept looking for.
How long did you struggle with that, just not being there?
Well, so far, 50 years.
Wow.
I still have dreams about Vietnam almost every night.
So
we went back 2 years ago. In 2016, Dixie and I got to go back to Vietnam, and it helped my dreams, my nightmares tremendously, because up till that point, I'd only been dreaming about all the negative things that I had seen in Vietnam. And in going back, we were able to see how beautiful the country is, how beautiful the people are. And so now when in my dreams, when I start having these bad dreams, I'll try to remember the good things, you know, the beautiful of the beautifulness of the country. And that certainly helps, because I can redirect it now. I have more memories to redirect to. Does that make any sense?
It does. What else happened? Any other great experiences while you were in Vietnam a few years ago?
Well, the amount of very young children that would run up to us on the street and touch on my arm and say, "Thank you," in English. And our interpreter said that's probably the only word of English that they know, but their parent or grandparent or great-grandparent has taught them that when they see a GI, that you're supposed to run up and thank them. And the amount of kids that did that it was outstanding. Made me feel really good.
Did you have on, I guess you were wearing the medal then?
No, sir. No, sir. No, I was just in regular civilian clothing, but I was, you know, blonde-haired and round-eyed. I'm a GI.
You stood out. Did you do any events there and speak at anything?
spoke to 5 of my former enemy. We spent one full day together, and our state departments got together and gathered those men up and brought them in, and that was a very unique day. The first hour that we were together in the morning, I mean, we were former enemies, and I could tell when they would say something and then the interpreter would interpret it. I don't speak Vietnamese, but I do understand just enough to know that the interpreter was sweetening it up considerably on some of the things that they said. So they would say something, and I could see the I won't say hatred, but I could see the dislike in their eyes when they would say it, and then the interpreter would say something kind of along the line of what they said, but sweeten it up greatly. Well, after about our first hour together, after all of us had the opportunity to talk, I told them, I said, I wanted them to understand that I didn't hate you as Vietnamese. You know, I didn't hate you as soldiers. I was just simply a soldier doing my job as a soldier. You know, I didn't hate you. And when I said that, all of a sudden their eyes changed, and the rest of the day just kept getting better and better and better once we realized that, you know, we didn't hate each other. We were just soldiers doing our job. Mm-hmm. And it worked out wonderfully. When we came together that morning as former enemy, and when we left that evening, we left as brothers.
Wow, that is very unique.
Yes, sir, it was awesome.
Were any of them there that night of the battle where you got the Medal of Honor?
None of them were at that actual battle, no. They were in the area, but they were not at that actual battle.
Well, can we talk a little bit about that? I know it's documented. You've given thousands and thousands of interviews on this, so I'll have links in the show notes of where people can read your citation and learn a lot more about you. But
yes, sir.
You know, I'm just thinking that night. So, from what I understand and remember, it was at night, first of all, correct?
Yes, sir.
And all of a sudden, you're just surrounded.
Well, they had been surrounding us all day, but that night is when they decided they were going to overrun us and take our artillery pieces away from us. So at 2 o'clock in the morning is when they actually did the attacks on us.
Were you asleep at that time, or were you woken up by the...
No, sir, I had not been asleep. I don't think very few of us had actually been asleep yet because it was, you know, we were in, there was combat going on all around us. So we weren't really sleeping. You know, you might close your eyes for a second, and then, you know, when you hear ta-ta-ta-ta-ta, boom, well, you wake up.
What kind of weapon were you carrying?
M16.
I guess that's what everybody had, huh?
Yes, sir.
Will you just walk us through it just a little bit? What happened? And I know you had a lot of, you got shot quite a bit. I guess you could maybe explain the beehive round as well, because I'm not familiar with that.
A beehive round is in a 105 howitzer. There are 1,800 inch-and-1/8 to inch-and-a-quarter long darts. They're diameter of a pencil lead, and they have 4 little fins on them, which they look like little arrows. Yeah. The official name is a flechette. The reason why the GIs called it beehive round was because when you fire it, you can't see nothing. All you can hear is it standing next to a beehive. Have you ever heard the bee? You stood next to a beehive and heard the bzzz.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's all you can hear. So we started calling it beehive. We need a beehive round. So we'd load a beehive round and fire it direct fire. It worked. 1,800 of those little darts going out does the job.
Well, it got you pretty good, didn't it?
Well, yes, sir. It saved my life.
Will you kind of walk us through a little bit and how you, because I know you all of a sudden you realized, okay, we're surrounded and it's go time. I mean, what all was going through your head at that time? How did you just, I'm imagining it's just like, hey, I've got a job to do. This is what I've trained for. Let's do it.
Well, we were in the process. We had been firing our howitzer. We had 4 guns out in the middle of the jungle, and our infantry was stationed around us, not close, but around us. And that's what we were doing. We were firing HE to support our infantry. Well, when the enemy decided they were going to take us out, well, they started hitting us directly. I mean, I could see the enemy, and I was firing the 105 howitzer direct fire at the enemy, and that's when they fired the rocket at me and hit the little shield on a 105 howitzer. It hit 8 inches from my head. The round hit 8 inches from my head, and that's what blew me, I don't know, 6-8 foot away into my foxhole, and that's what I was laying half in and half out of my foxhole when the enemy started coming across the river, and they were there. Well, the gun, our 105 howitzer directly behind us, when they seen that, they thought, well, we better fire the 105, their 105 howitzer beehive rounds. So they did. They fired the direct fire, and we weren't all dead. So that's how I got hit with the beehive round, from my mid-thigh up to and including my fourth lumbar vertebra in my back. I was laying half in and half out of my foxhole. If I hadn't had my flak jacket on, I probably wouldn't be here. But I did have my flak jacket on, and that's when they fired the beehive. That's what woke me up. Well, there I am laying in the bottom of the foxhole. Now, the reason why I was unconscious was because that round just hit 8 inches from my head and blew up. So I'm laying there in my foxhole, and I couldn't really hear anything but this loud, roaring in my head, but I could see all the pretty lights. And as I'm lying there enjoying the pretty lights, all of a sudden I start realizing that, wow, those aren't just pretty lights, those are tracers. Because our tracers were red and their tracers were white, blue, or green. It depended on which communist nation was supporting it, and that night we had red, white, blue, and green tracers, so that meant everybody was there. And as I lie there in the bottom of my foxhole, and I could start hearing again. I could start hearing individual rat, tat, 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 boom, 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 and I thought, well, it seemed like just seconds ago in my mind that I was standing next to the howitzer. I remember that I had just fired the howitzer. I pulled the lanyard. Well, where am I at now? Well, I kind of raise up, and I'm in my foxhole. Wow. Well, I could see my howitzer right there, and it was burning pretty furiously. The tires were burning. I could see the enemy all around us, and I thought, wow. So that's when I went to work trying to keep them away from us.
How was there not a lot of friendly fire that night?
Yeah, it was the 105 howitzer behind me, that because the enemy was all around us. They fired. They did their job. But that's what, if they had not fired that beehive round and cleared the enemy, I'm sure they would have, the enemy, because they would run up on one of our guys and shoot you again, stab you at the bayonet, and, to make sure that we were dead. So if my guys hadn't cleared the area with a beehive round, I'm sure they would have done me while I was laying there on the ground.
So what was there a full moon that night, or it sounds like you could see somewhat decently?
I won't say there was a full moon, but it wasn't. It wasn't totally dark, because we had other infantry, other artillery units that were too far away to fire HE, but they could fire illumination for us.
Oh.
So because you can fire illumination farther than you can HE, and so we had flares, in the background.
So that night you had about 1,200 enemies surrounding you. Is that right?
A reinforced heavy weapons battalion of NVA.
Good grief. How many Americans was it?
Well, there were 42 artillerymen, and then we had elements of the 5th to 60th Infantry that were there around us also. That were there, that we were there protecting them, or they were there protecting us, however you want to put that.
Mm-hmm. So you ended up having to swim across the river and just kind of back and forth, right? You were getting your teammates.
Yes, sir. Well, that's when I seen the three men across the river after I got all blown up, and that's when I seen the three guys across the river, and that's when Mom said, "Son, you don't leave your brothers." So I went and got them.
You used the mattress, the blow up mattress, as
the little air mattress. That was our official bedding, was the rubber mattress. Which if you ever tried to really sleep on an air mattress, you always roll off anyway. So normally we didn't use it, but we had to carry it with us because that was our official bed.
Just added weight.
Yes, sir.
What kind of interaction with, and I don't remember the men's names, I think one of them, was Jim Dyster one of the ones that you got?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And that's a cool story I'd like to talk about in a second, but was there any other dialogue between you and the men as you were bringing them across the river?
Talked to Gwendell Holloway. Gwendell's from Stockton, California. And Gwendell and I spoke. Jim Dyster, we thought he was dead. Billy Ray Crawford from Alvin, Texas. Billy Ray he could talk okay. He had I think it was his left leg that was blown off just below his knee. But Gwendell had bandaged him up, and we were all talking as much as practical. I mean, when you're in that severe combat, you don't have time to really talk a whole lot, but we were saying things you can't repeat now.
Yeah, I was wondering if there needed to be any, like, motivating each other or trying to keep someone conscious, anything like that.
Well, we were constantly worried about checking about Jim and Billy Ray on his leg, and Gwendell, just talking about that and all the people that were around us, the enemy that was around us. Mm-hmm. So that's why I knew that we had to hurry and get across the river. So I took Jim Dyster across first and then came, because he was dead. We thought he was dead, but I wasn't going to leave him because we'd seen what they do toward the dead bodies of our brothers. So I wasn't going to leave him. So I brought him across first and went back, and then Billy Ray and Gwendell could both hang on to the air mattress. So I brought them back across, and everything was okay.
And Jim Dyster, I mean, yeah, you said he was for sure dead, and didn't his body he get kind of put in a pile of where the dead were?
Yes, he was shot right through the head, just below the ear, and he was, well, they'd shot him in the chest also, and we thought he was dead. Well, after we got him back on our side of the bank that morning, I remember picking him up and carrying him over and putting him on the pile of the other soldiers, of our soldiers that had lost their life. And then when the choppers started coming in, I picked Jim up and carried him over and put him on the chopper.
Wow. What happened? How did you find out?
Well, I didn't know right then. Actually, I passed out, and my guys put me on that same chopper, and they flew me out too. But the story that I found out several years later from Jim Dyster was that the medic on board that helicopter seen a bubble come up out of the chest wound that Jim had, and thought, well, because everybody was supposed to have been dead except me. And when they seen the bubble come up, he put his stethoscope and heard his heartbeat. Said he had 25 beats a minute. And so they started giving him fluids. And Jim Dyster, as you know, is alive and well today, lives in Salina, Kansas.
Yep, and you know his family and his grandchildren.
Most certainly. Most certainly. I know all of his children and all of his grandchildren. It's great.
Yeah, that's an awesome story. What else about your time, I guess that night in particular, what do you like to share about that time?
Well, no matter what you're faced with, you don't lose till you quit trying. And I just didn't quit trying, no matter how bad I hurt. And I didn't think in my heart that I was going to live to see daylight, but I wasn't going to quit trying. I just kept going, kept doing what I could while I could. And the man above wasn't done with me yet, and I'm still here today.
You felt your mom's spirit. Do you feel like there were other loved ones there with you, giving you strength to do almost the impossible, what you did?
Well, my dad, my brothers that also served in the military, my grandpas, it's just amazing where your mind goes when you're that scared, frightened, wounded, and all the people that had touched my life was there with me that night in my spirit, and that's one of the things that kept me going.
Yeah. When you look back on your time in the Army, is there another event or time that stands out even more than the night that you got the Medal of Honor, or for that battle?
Well, the day that I received it. I earned it on November the 18th, 1967, and I received it on November the 19th, 1968, 1 year and 1 day later. And, you know, I'd had all kind of military training in the military, but I'd never had any training at all on how to go to the White House and receive the Medal of Honor for the president. And I can remember standing up there on this little stage with the president, and well, later my mom told me, she said, "Sammy Lee, your legs were shaking so bad I thought you was going to fall down." And I said, "Mama, I thought I was going to fall down too," you know, because I I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what to do, you know, and I was just really, I was actually more frightened that day than I was the night that I earned it, because most of what I did the night that I earned it was my job. I'd been trained very well on how to, you know, shoot howitzers and, you know, all that kind of stuff. I'd never received any training on how to go to the White House and receive the Medal of Honor. You understand?
Uh-huh.
It was
well,
amazing.
I guess you had dinners as well, and was there like etiquette situations you just didn't know what to do as well, and what order to do things in? Was it that kind of situation too?
They did not do that before I received the medal. I was green standing up there in front of the president.
Was it on live TV?
Say again?
Was it on live TV?
You know, I don't even know if they had live TV back then. They filmed it. I think you can still get it on internet, the actual film presentation.
Yeah, definitely, because Forrest Gump, that's you right there.
Exactly. Yes, sir. That's the footage they used in Forrest Gump.
I don't know how much you want to talk about this, but it just blew me away. Well, first of all, I did have our friend Mike Davis from Manteca has been a guest on the show. And he told, I think he was episode 4, I believe. He was in the first 4 anyway. And he told me what happened to him when he came home from Vietnam, and they brought them through the Northwest and ended up going through Berkeley and the protest, and their bus actually got stopped, and the people were actually rocking the bus, and he felt less safe there than he did in country in Vietnam. And
that's a fact.
With you, it sounds like, I mean, you had this same situation, except I think yours was even more, it was worse, because you were you walking through the airport and then you had to face these people?
Yes, sir. It was between 20 and 30 of the protesters that stopped me on the way to the airport. This is after, I flew back to Travis Air Force Base. Yeah, I was in the airport when that happened. And I just got my ticket and was walking to the concourse for my plane flying from San Francisco back to Indianapolis was going to leave from, and that's when all the protesters ganged up on me and wanted me to walk the gauntlet.
Mm-hmm.
So,
looking back, how in the world did you control yourself?
Well, I knew that I wasn't supposed to react. That's what we'd been told. You know, just don't react to them. You know, don't let them push you to the point that you blow up and do something that you'll regret. So that's what I was just trying real hard to do what was right.
Did you look any of them in the eye?
I looked every one of them in the eye. And I've had, over the last 50 years, I've had a great number of men and women come up and tell me that, well, I was a protester during the Vietnam War, and I'm sorry because I protested you. I just didn't know the truth. And that's made my heart feel a little bit better. Maybe
they never forgot that look in your eye either.
Well, I hope not. Because I was serious.
They actually had dog crap.
Oh, and worse.
Golly.
And worse.
And that, you actually experienced that more, didn't you, when you went to speak at certain colleges, I guess?
Well, yeah. Well, as the Medal of Honor recipient, I was the one always out front of the parade, you know. And so as the one out front, I was the one that got the dog crap thrown on me. I was the one that got all the insults. I was the receiver of whatever the crowd wanted to give. And during that time, in the late 60s, 70s, concerning Vietnam, it was usually not nice. So you learn to put up with it and just continue on. I knew in my heart that what I had done was right. I went to Vietnam to help people be free, and freedom is worth fighting for.
Yeah. And, when you believe in a cause, that makes it easier to stand up to the adversity.
Yes, sir.
Did you have security with you at these things?
Say again?
Did you have to have any type of security with you when you would speak at the universities during that period?
Usually they did have security, yes.
Okay.
So, I mean, if they knew that it was going to be very, very unruly, I had a lot of security, and there's usually one or two people.
What would you do when they would start yelling? Did you ever stop and let them say their piece, or would you just try to talk over them, or how would you handle it?
Normally, I continued doing my job. I mean, if they became too loud and too unruly, I would, be quiet and look at them, and then when they were done screaming or whatever, then I would continue on with what I had to say.
But you always kept your cool.
Well, I won't say always, but none of it ever made the media.
It was back before everybody had a phone in their pocket, I guess. I mean a camera
Exactly.
in their pocket.
Exactly.
Mr. Davis, where would you be? You were an athletic guy. You played sports in high school.
Yes, sir.
Or at least football. Did you? I think you played multiple sports, didn't you?
Well, I was on the swim team there in Manteca.
Yeah, okay.
Played a little bit of football, and then decided that I needed to get a job so I could support the fact that girls smell better than boys. So you have to have money in your pocket to be able to pursue that.
Certainly. So if you hadn't have joined the Army, what do you think you would have ended up doing?
I would have probably been a Hells Angel.
Really?
Well, I joined the Hells Angels just south of Manteca, but that's when we moved that summer. Of course, now I'd been working up in the mountains, so I didn't get to spend. I would only get to go party with them, just for a few hours, once or twice a month.
Well, do you ride to this day?
I didn't. I do not now. No, my legs will not allow that. The doctor has suggested I do not ride motorcycle. I still would love to, but no, I don't. Now, the Hells Angels back then were not. They were not the evil thing that people think they were back then. I mean, this was the early '60s.
Okay.
And these were just a bunch of. I mean, yeah, we had some wild guys, but on the most part, everybody was just good people that liked to party.
Was it just get together on the weekends and ride, or what was it really? What was the?
Yes, sir. Ride.
Okay.
Ride to different events. It was just a good time. Everybody getting together.
Man, just think of all the events you do now if you could show up in a Harley.
Well, yes, sir.
Well, you've talked too about the reason why you joined the Army. Will you share that with us?
Well, I joined the Army because of my dad and my grandpas. I just wanted to do for them what they had done for the country.
I saw an interview with you, and you said how it's easier, to talk to the kids. You love talking to the kindergartners or the young kids versus
yes, sir, I do.
The ones or the college ones.
Well, I enjoy talking to all the people, all the students. My favorite is 4th, 5th, and 6th graders because they will ask what's really on their mind, what's really in their heart. I mean, it's pretty amazing, some of the questions that they ask. I mean, I remember thinking, well, how do these young children even know to ask those kind of questions? It just blows you away. But I always open up my heart and let them see what's there.
What are some of the things that they ask?
Well, one of the things that I always will remember is, well, Sergeant Davis, where did you go to the bathroom in the jungle? And then the little girl would ask, well, what did you clean yourself up with afterwards? And because they really wanted to know, I mean, they weren't being smart. They really wanted to know. It's easy to open up your heart and tell them.
Yeah, you gave an example, too, of contrast that with a college student who was asking you maybe the same question, but he had a different intent. It's like, how did it feel to kill somebody?
That's right. Well, how many people did you kill in Vietnam? But when a 5th grader asks that question, it has different context. Well, how many people did you kill? and I tell them, it's okay. Well, I tell when the university student asks that question, I tell them too, but it's just easier to talk and answer the fifth grader.
Yeah, the university student doesn't really care what you say because they already...
Well, they really want to know. The college students sometimes think they already know the answer, so they're just being smart about it.
Well, one thing you said about that I liked was the Ten Commandments say thou shalt not kill. That means thou shalt not murder. I was doing my job. I never killed anybody who wasn't trying to kill me.
That is a fact. Yes, sir. Yeah. I never killed anyone that wasn't trying to kill me. I just was a little better at the job than they were.
Yeah, amen. You're such an ambassador for the country and for the medal and for the Army and just all things good and you travel. I don't know. Do you travel over 100 days a year?
Oh, we're on the road over 200 days a year.
Wow. And is Dixie with you?
Oh, yes, sir, always.
All that time.
She keeps me out of trouble.
What type of wife does a Medal of Honor recipient need?
What type of wife does a Medal of Honor recipient need? You want to answer that, Dick? Patient. She said a patient one.
It sounds like someone who doesn't mind entertaining when you get tired of, when you just need to take a break for a minute, too.
This is Dixie. I have laryngitis, so I'll try to talk the best I can.
Sure.
I think you said it exactly right. It's my job to take care of Sam. And when he gets tired or loses his train of thought, it's my job. I do speak with him a lot of times. And we've been married so long now that we play off of each other really, really well. But, yes, you have to be very patient, and you really have to like people. Otherwise, it would be a terrible job to have. The travel days are tough, but being there is always great. And we're 72 years old, and people say, well, I retired once. I'm an interior designer, and I retired to travel with Sam full time. And people say, why don't you retire and rest for a while? But, if you think that if you're making a difference in someone's life for just that one day, for just that one person, then how do you ever stop?
Well, that's why you're a patriot, too. Man,
well,
y'all do so much good.
I hope so, because I really believe in what we do. And I think Sam has such a great story to tell. Not just to kids, but we talk a lot to corporations and probably more adults than we do kids, right? But everybody needs encouragement. Who hasn't gone through something terrible in their life? It may not be military, but everybody has some sort of trauma.
Mm-hmm.
So it's our job to encourage.
You don't lose, you quit trying.
Okay, nice talking to you. Here's Sam.
Thank you very much.
Sorry about the bad voice.
That's okay. I loved it.
No matter what you're faced with, you don't lose till you quit trying.
Man, you sound just like my dad. That's great. Yeah, that was a treat to have her join us.
Excellent.
Good little surprise. What else, Mr. Davis, would you like to share with the Patriot to the Core audience?
Well, I think I'm good.
What about something off topic? Like, other than your book, what's your favorite book?
My favorite book is Dixie's book, Endless Love and Second Chances.
Okay.
Which is, have you read that?
No, I haven't, but I'll put a link to it.
Endless Love and Second Chances. Dixie's book is about us and how we came together. And it tells all the real stories about all of our travels and adventures, and it's a great book.
Well, good. I'll look that up and I'll share that with the listeners too.
Oh, excellent.
What about the maybe the oddest group you've spoken to, or the oddest place that you've been as a Medal of Honor recipient?
Oddest group I remember a long time ago I spoke to the Rainbow Coalition in Chicago, and the unique thing was that they wouldn't let me say what I wanted to say. I had to say, they wrote the speech for me. And they had gotten I was trying to get booking through a speaking agency, and the speaking agency is the one that booked me through to the Rainbow Coalition, and that's when I quit doing speaking engagements for speaking firms. I just do them all just by word of mouth.
So you basically were committed to it. You just
because I had signed the contract with the speaking agency, I had to do it. So, and on the most part, most of them are pretty nice people.
Was that Jesse Jackson's organization?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Oh man, yeah, I'm not a fan of him.
And I couldn't say what I wanted. I had to say what they wrote the speech for me. So, and I didn't agree with everything that they said, but it's what I had to do. So, but it's over and done with.
Yeah, well, I don't blame you for basically saying I'm not doing that again.
Yes, sir.
Do it on your own terms.
Yes, sir.
There is a remarkable story, I believe this is in the book, about the medal, how you lost the medal. It was actually stolen out of the trunk of your car.
Yes, sir.
You ended up getting it back.
Yes, sir. It was going 3 nights, 4 days. And the whole story is in Dixie's book, and it even has the stories of some of the cops that were involved in retrieving the medal. Their stories are also in the book.
Good. Well, the part of the story that I know that I like to share is how basically one of the thieves that kind of came in contact with the medal remembered holding that medal as a young child when you had spoken at his school.
Yep.
Sounds like in it.
When he was in the 6th grade, I spoke at his class. And that's why he couldn't let the other guys have the medal. That's why he took it away from them and threw it in the river. And then told the cops where he had thrown it. And sure enough, it was right where he said he'd thrown it. So they found it. That story is all in Dixie's book.
Well, that's great. Well, thank you so much. I really, one thing I was thinking of too, if you wanted to just elaborate on this, is did you ever work as a civilian?
Oh, most certainly.
In the military? Did you ever experience people who were really stressing out or worried about some things that you considered so minimal, and just think to yourself, man, you don't even know what real stress is like?
Well, for a while I worked at Hudsonville, Illinois Power Generating Station, and when you're bringing a unit up or taking a unit down, sometimes there are stressful things that happen, and I just always tried to share with everybody that, hey, all you got to do is do your job. Do what you know your job is, and everything will work out. And sure enough, every time, everything always worked out. So you just don't lose till you quit trying.
My dad always says, if it was easy, anybody could do it. So that's why you remind me of my dad.
Cool.
You keep saying that.
Yep.
Well, this has been a complete pleasure. Thank you for really just making time for me.
Well, thank you, sir.
Busy.
Well, I hope it works. Keep me posted on it.